There are a couple of topics that I'm hoping to hit with this video today, and it feels like the best way to talk about this is to just share my own personal experience and my own personal journey with all of it. And the topics that I'm hoping to touch upon, and we'll see if that's just, what happens and what comes through, is shadow work, spirituality, or seeking enlightenment as an escape or as a way to try to fix ourselves completely unconsciously, not even realize that we're doing it. Emotional repression, and I think those are the big ones. That feels like the big things that I want to hit. But I guess to start this, when I first got interested in all of this stuff, in enlightenment, spirituality, non-duality, call it, whatever, like oneness, unity, call it whatever you want to call it. But without even realizing it, what I was doing was using it as an escape, because I had spent my whole life searching for a way to end my suffering. And I did so much seeking before I became a spiritually flavored seeker. I did so much seeking. I poured myself into, physical fitness, food, work, yoga, therapy, psychedelics, all the things. And there was something about like non-duality in particular. And even at the time that I kind of was introduced to it, I didn't know that terminology. I didn't have a spiritual background, didn't really have like much of a spiritual bone in my body outside of, I had, found the Tao Te Ching and, was really captivated by that text, even though I really didn't know. It spoke to something, but my mind couldn't understand what it was saying. And without even realizing it, I used seeking to try to avoid my life, myself. I was like, oh yeah, there's, and I had an experience of oneness and like kind of had an awakening to the dream. And what happened was that the ego here used that and created a new identity with it, created a non-dual identity, an identity that, how would I describe it? It created an identity that was above and beyond all of the human stuff, that was, like an avoidant identity. And I didn't even realize that that's what had happened. And I used it as a way to, like, when an emotion would arise or when something would be triggered, the mind would just be like, I know that that's not the truth of what I am. But I wouldn't really investigate further. It was just like, I know that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. And in that way, it was literally, like, without even realizing it, what was happening was I was resisting what was naturally trying to arise. Like, that was life showing me where I wasn't free, where I was stuck, where there was still, even though maybe the mind didn't believe something, there was still energetic programming in the body. So the body believed it. The patterns were being lived out, even though I could say, I know that's not true. I know that's not the truth of what I am. So it was like this very sneaky little trap. And I've heard Adyashanti say, that when he first started teaching, he would have people like really talking up his retreats and stuff, and it's like, oh, come and join this thing and like come sit and realize the like the truth of your being. And what he would say is, I wonder what's going to happen when the other shoe drops. And the other shoe dropping is shadow work. It's what we unconsciously are avoiding. We're hoping that non-duality, that spirituality, that enlightenment is going to allow us to jump over, to bypass, to skirt around, to get out of having to directly confront all of the emotions that haven't been felt, all of the repressed energies that we've been avoiding, all of the dysfunctional relationships in our life. And that could include the tension and the relationships that aren't working within our family of origin, within our partnership with our children. And it's very alluring, you know, like non-duality is very alluring. And I hear teachers talking about the danger of spirituality, and that really is it. You know, it can be used as a way, and this is exactly what happened here, what I did. It was used as a way to continue to avoid, to continue to play out unconsciousness, to continue to behave in unconscious ways, to continue, and it was all done in innocence, you know. And so it kind of just like life put me in a circumstance where, you know, something just like snapped in me. And it was like the dam that had been holding back all of the repression, all the repressed energies just broke. And it's interesting because I had done a lot, like years, like 6-7 years of trauma therapy and somatic experiencing and yoga and psychedelics, and like had really done a lot of work, and had gotten to like a good place, more or less, but there was still these really fundamental, like super fundamental ways that I was engaging with life, engaging with the world, engaging with people, with my family, with partners, with my dog, with myself, like really fundamental ways. And non-duality or enlightenment or awakening was used as a way to kind of try to bypass that, try to jump over it, try to avoid having to directly confront that. And it was really uncomfortable to have that dam finally break open. Like the dam finally broke open, and it was extremely uncomfortable to have those things rising to the surface and to not have the coping mechanisms anymore to be able to avoid them or to say that that's not true. I wasn't able to do that anymore. Oh, what do you got, little one? There's a train coming, so you get to go on that ride with me again. I've been timing these videos well, so you get a train teacher too. The engine's usually the loudest, which is usually at the front and the middle, so I'll pause while that goes by. So yeah, that was a sneaky little thing that I didn't fully realize, and once it really opened up, it was fucking uncomfortable. Like it was the intensity of it was shocking, you know. And I had been in intense situations and done a lot of work that was really hard even up to that point, but there was something about the coping mechanisms that were allowing me to not directly encounter those energies. There was something about that falling that was like, it was so uncomfortable because I had to feel it completely. And I had thought that I was feeling it completely, but I actually wasn't. That was just another story. Like, I thought I was pretty open-hearted, and I thought that I was relatively honest, and I was relatively open-hearted and relatively honest, but there were ways that I was still holding things back, like holding my tongue, or an emotion would arise and I would tell myself, well, I know that that's not true, therefore, like, I'm just gonna keep it to myself. So there was, in that, I was, without realizing it, like, what's happening in that is it's maintaining separation. It's maintaining an inside, an internal experience that I'm telling myself doesn't need to become external. So it's like, it's maintaining separation. It's maintaining the illusion of inside. Like, this is my inside experience, and maintaining an outside. Like, I'm not going to share this experience. I'm not going to allow it to manifest, to move through. I'm not going to express it because I know that it's not true. But what that's doing is it's maintaining the illusion without even realizing it, which is wild. That one's really interesting. It's maintaining the separation. And, like, really what this particular stage of awakening is, at least like in my own experience, is there coming to be complete congruence between inside and outside, and there's no longer a place inside to hide or to lean on, because what's inside, like, what arises expresses. There's no longer a function that, like, when something arises, that can say, oh, that's not necessary to express that, or that's not true. Like, that's not true mechanism is part of the suppression, is part of, like, the new egoic structure that was gloved onto as a way to avoid direct confrontation. Because awakening or non-duality, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't, like, the words really are irrelevant, honestly, because it's like what it really is beyond any concepts or words. But so there's ways that the illusion is maintained that are so subtle and so sneaky that it's not even seen for what it is. You know, it turns into, like, the ego thinking that it's awake, when there's still suppression happening, or there's still avoidance happening, or there's still resistance happening. Like, the mere thought of that's not true is itself resistance. Like, it's using the thought to justify maintaining the function that avoids the direct confrontation with what's arising naturally, spontaneously. And awakening is waking up from the ego, from identity. Ooh, that one's spooky. It's waking up from identity. All identity, even the sneaky, subtle identities. That it's not true because I know what truth is. Therefore, it doesn't need to be expressed. But what's not realized in doing that is that truth is all of it. It's the absolute oneness of what you are, but it's also every sensation and energy that arises. Like, it's not separate. It can't be separate. Because it's one. It's not like oneness of, like, we're in it, like, I think it's Adyashanti that talks about, like, this misconception of oneness being like we're in it together kind of vibe, but it's just one. And the illusion is that it's anything but just one. So the thought, the sensation, but it's weird, like even the resistance is it, which is strange. So like that's the weird paradox of it. Even the resistance is it. But there's gonna come a point, if you're on, if you think you want to wake up, there's gonna come a point where you're gonna have to directly feel, confront, not just that, but it's giving yourself to it. It's dying into what's arising. It's like so here, like Jennifer ceases to exist so that, what an energy which would be labeled sadness can express. It's not Jennifer experiencing the sadness, it's just the energy of sadness expressing completely. And the Jennifer it was the thing that got in the way. Like the Jennifer was the veil, was the illusion, that was preventing the sadness from expressing. Because the sadness is it. The sadness is it. The anger is it. The repression is it. Even the resistance is it. So all of the ways that anything is being suppressed is literally part of the illusion. So if you find yourself in that trap that I found myself in, of an energy arising and a thought of, I know that's not true. That's not true. That's a way to push the energy back down. If you find that the energy doesn't express, that's a pretty good indicator that there's something blocking, that there's a resistance pattern, an avoidance mechanism. And so I wanted to use spirituality to heal, because there'd been so much suffering in my life. Like this storyline had such deep suffering that I was trying to get free of that. And in getting free of that, I wanted to avoid directly confronting it. But part of it is, wow, there's a bird that just flew so close, right by. That was cool. But to get to heaven, you go through hell. Like Dante's Divine Comedy. Go through inferno, hell, to get to paradise. You can't avoid it. It can't be avoided. Everything has to be dropped. It's not just dropping the identification with it in the mind. That's a stage of it. That I know that's not true, and that is a piece of the process, but it's not complete. That's not complete. Because the body is still going to be playing out the energies, because the energies themselves are seeking their own liberation. They're seeking to be liberated, and in order to be liberated, they have to be completely expressed and felt and confronted and inspected, not just inspected cognitively, but felt directly, experienced directly. So that's a sneaky little trap. It's a sneaky little trap. And I, for a time, was convinced that I didn't, this little stinkers, being frisky right now. I was convinced for a time that I wasn't, that I was good. Like, I'm good. Oh. I live out in the country, man. These people out here. Ooh, we love guns out here. Apparently we're getting into some guns. Let's see how many more of these we've got. Is that it? Guess my neighbors are doing some shooting. Yeah, all of it has to be confronted. Directly. And like being awake isn't going to be never feeling anything. It's like it's not having the resistance mechanism so that when something arises, it moves through seamlessly because there's nothing interfering with it. So like tears may be shed. What is called grief may be felt very directly. So scary. What's called tears may be felt very directly. Fear may be felt very directly. Being startled by a gunshot. It's going to be felt very directly. There's a directness in it. So, all that said, I fell into that trap of thinking that waking up was going to be some like state of never feeling anything, of never having an emotion again, of never having difficulty again, of life always being wonderful, but it's not. It's that there's no longer resistance to any part of life. And there's a joy in that. There's like a giving oneself. It's literally like the me dissolves into the direct experience. So all of those things still arise. Like what could be labeled as an emotion still arises, but the me has fused what it thinks an emotion is with a thought, with a story. But the emotion is just the pure sensation of it. So those still arise, but it's not resisted anymore. So the experience, what you would call the experience of it, changes completely. And it's almost hard. I was talking yesterday to somebody about this, and it's almost hard to look back and remember what it was like to be stuck in a story or to identify with thoughts. It's very strange. That like the identification with it just stops. It's not that thoughts stop per se, but it's almost like there's just not really attention paid to it, like, but while before it's like a fishing line being cast into a river, and you're gonna pull up a thought and attach to a thought, but it becomes just watching the river, and the stuff goes by, but it's not attached to anymore. It's not hooked anymore. And that, like, you could say, like, using that analogy, you could catch a fish and say, like, I know this isn't true, I know this isn't real, but still there it is. And it takes energy to catch the fish and then to release the fish. That takes energy. That's still a pattern being played out. So you have to like directly experience that and allow that energy to move through the body, so that you can get to a point where you're just standing on the riverbank and you watch the fish, and you know that it's not true. There's not a need to, like, there's no need anymore for it to even be caught and then let go. Like, the catching and the letting go is part of the avoidance and the resistance mechanism. It's the hook. It's part of the hook. And, you know, part of this process is letting that go too. But in order to do that, what's arising has to be felt completely, and you don't even have to like try to dredge this stuff up, you know? Like, you don't have to sit and like try to make it happen. It's just like stuff is naturally going to arise in your life. There's naturally going to be interactions in your life where an energy arises, or there's a relating happening with somebody, and it triggers something, and it's like your life as it is going to show you where you're not free. And it's a matter of paying attention to that. And it might, you know, like, for a while I thought that like therapy wasn't going to be a part of this, that like shadow work was negated, that things like internal family systems and attachment theory and like all the psychological stuff is going to come into play. It's just, it becomes a way to make sense, or it becomes a way to see a belief clearly, to see a story clearly, to see a pattern clearly. And then once it's seen for the belief, the pattern, once it's seen to not be true and felt to not be true through direct experience and through like an understanding, it dissolves. But like that, at least here, has been an essential process of really doing like deep research into psychology, attachment theory, somatic experiencing, somatic modalities, internal family systems, inner child work, shadow work, like all of that. It can be an essential piece of this. So, shadow work. Don't avoid it. Don't avoid it like I did. Or maybe you will. But if you resonate with any of this stuff, just maybe there's something to look at. You know, like there was a deep like egoic arrogance here. Because I was afraid. I was afraid to feel all the stuff that I had been avoiding, all the pain. You know, I wanted to transcend the pain, but you have to feel the pain in order to liberate the pain. And that's a hard pill to swallow. Like, you have to feel it completely. And there's going to probably be layers to it, and it's going to be really uncomfortable and intense. But the intensity, you almost get used to the intensity. Like the system acclimates and gets used to feeling things directly. So it can be a lot at first. It was a lot here, and there were, like the system had to acclimate to that. But like as stuff was let go, it was like simultaneously intense, but like very freeing, and just the body got lighter and lighter and lighter. And there's still, you know, it's still obvious that there's places that tension is held, like in this general, like this general area is felt often. And, you know, just like subtle ways, but there's more of an attunement to the, you know, where those patterns are being held, which is cool. So like there's like the sensitivity increases, the like how sensitive you are to things increases. Puppy does not like the loud sounds. Do you? I'm sorry, that's scary, huh? It's like if you look at a dog doesn't have a story of itself, but a dog still jumps and feels fear directly when there's something loud that's not understood. That's part of, you know, that's just part of it. It's part of this like life game. It's feeling things directly. Like animals feel jealousy. Animals feel jealousy. Animals feel fear. Animals feel all of it. But it's not held. It's not held. It's experienced directly and then released. So that's all I have.